From The National, this is Trending Middle East. I'm Yasmin Al-Taji. It's Thursday, May 1st. Here are today's headlines. Israel is on the offensive in a move it claims it made on behalf of the Druze in Syria. Israel struck the Syrian town of Sahnaya yesterday in what Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Israel Katz called a warning strike against, quote, extremists. It came after 12 were killed and 15 injured in a militant attack on a Druze suburb of Damascus this week. The National's Hadya Al Alawi reports.
Israel has said before that it's ready to prevent any attacks against the Druze community and that it also would intervene if the new Syrian leadership were to attack them in any way.
Israel views Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which took over Damascus in December, as a threat at its border. It's vowed to defend Syrian Druze, members of an offshoot of Islam with followers in Jordan, Syria, and Israel.
So the Druze community is worried about a repeat of previous sectarian violence that happened in the country. Especially we remember what happened to the Alawite coastal areas where more than 1,300 people were killed. And this is just one episode of what has been ongoing for months now. The process of normalization between the different sects, between the different religions and ethnicities in Syria seems to be more complicated than probably what the new authorities had anticipated. There were some comments from Druze researchers, who said that the Syrian government seems to be supporting the assaults on the Druze rather than protecting them. Of course, the Syrian government has denied that.
Israeli-Druze relations are complex, and Israeli motives in Syria are viewed as multifaceted.
The Druze and Israelis have had a different kind of relationship for years, and Israel wanted to make the point that it would continue to protect that minority. But also looking at the bigger picture, I think Israel has an interest in creating a little bit more division within the country and turning one side against the other. So the Druze community against different Sunni groups, and by adding to the violence that has already happened, it's kind of fueling the cycle of war that's happening in Syria right now.
The UAE says it's foiled a plot to smuggle weapons and military equipment to the Sudanese armed forces, which is fighting a bloody civil war against paramilitaries. The plot involved a private plane and 5 million rounds of machine gun ammunition. That's according to UAE Attorney General Dr. Hamad Saif al-Shamsi. State news agency WAM quoted him saying the incident, quote, represents a severe breach of the state's security by turning its territory into a hub for illicit military trade, targeting a country suffering from internal conflict, unquote.
The cell members completed a deal including Kalashnikov rifles, ammunition, machine guns.
The National's Ali Al-Shouk reports.
Fake contracts and invoices were created to try to claim the payments were used for importing sugar. We also know that the stash arrived in an aircraft that landed to refuel in an airport in the UAE after declaring it was carrying medical supplies.
The cell members completed an arms deal worth millions of dollars. The arms were then moved to an import company in the UAE. The plot involved an Emirati airport, which hasn't been named.
Investigations revealed that the cell members from Sudanese military leaders were involved in the operation, including former intelligence chief Salah Qosh, a former officer of the intelligence agency, also a former advisor to the finance minister, and a political figure close to General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and his deputy Yasser al-Ata.
This came one day after a UN report accused Sudan's military and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces of committing widespread atrocities against civilians in the ongoing civil war. Sudan's army had previously accused the UAE of arming the RSF, but the UN didn't mention those claims or include any findings against the UAE. The Emirates has repeatedly denied the accusations and stressed that it does not support any warring parties, but rather calls for an immediate and unconditional end to the conflict. It's been just over 100 days of an unprecedented Israeli invasion of Jenin's refugee camp in the West Bank. The operation, named Iron Wall, also extended to other cities in the north of the occupied West Bank. It's led to tens of thousands of people being displaced and placing yet more strain on local authorities and NGOs who are attempting to meet the needs of those fleeing. The refugee camps under siege were already struggling with difficult living conditions and high unemployment rates. They've long produced Palestinian militants.
While all of the West Bank, in particular the north, is used to Israeli military raids, Iron Wall has been quite different for a number of reasons.
The National's Thomas Helm reports.
First of all, the duration. It's gone on for 100 days, and it seems like Israeli troops are going nowhere. Also, the nature of the fighting. Airstrikes have been used. We've seen them before, but they're rare. And Israel is fighting in a manner that it often doesn't do in the West Bank, namely destroying entire streets, demolishing homes, and essentially, through its destruction, reordering the city, creating wide streets that will make it easier for Israeli forces to enter these camps in the future, and erecting metal barriers which gives the military control over who enters.
Between January 1 and April 24th, more than 90% of 116 Palestinians killed were in the north of the region, according to the UN. 7 Israelis, 5 of them security personnel, have been killed in the same period. The Palestinian Authority, which is supposed to govern Jenin, launched its own operation at the camp at the end of last year.
We've been to a number of the cities affected by Iron Wall, including Jenin, over the past few months. When I was there, it was the early days of the operation, and we went around the city talking to some of the tens of thousands of people that had been displaced. This included a family that had moved to the countryside surrounding the camp. They were being supported by civil society groups and were living in a mixture of tents and caravans.
The UN says it's difficult to get an exact number of how many Palestinians have been displaced by the Iron Wall, quote, partly due to continuous attempts by families to return to their homes, with many displaced